Hi y'all, my name is Mr. Chao and welcome to Chao Time. I'm back this week with a review on this watch. This is the Seiko Baby Alpinist, as it's called. It's the mini Explorer's field watch from the brand. First, I'd like to thank my friend who let me borrow this watch. I've had it for about 2 weeks now, so thank you very much for letting me have it for so long. Without the generosity of people like him, it would be really hard for me to continue making these reviews. And the reason is mainly because the prices on the secondary market here are quite high, and the import fees are kind of crazy. So even just getting watches from outside of Taiwan is difficult. Speaking of, in order for me to continue making reviews, I have to buy watches, and in order to do that, I need to sell watches. So if you look in the description below, you'll see my Instagram, and I have watches available to buy. There's not that many right now, but hopefully I'll be getting on that and posting some of my watches. Yeah, so if you want to support the channel, one way is you can buy a watch, or you can just like and subscribe. That works too. The way I review watches is by objectively scoring them against a rubric to get a total score. I then take that total score and I apply a value multiplier. That kind of captures the diminishing returns on quality as you increase in price, because it's like an exponential increase in price, whereas the increase in quality is more of a linear increase. If you're interested in how this all works, or you want to see the rubrics in a little bit more detail, you can check out the video in the top right hand corner. After the review, I give my completely subjective opinion on the watch. This includes things like my sentimental attachment, or just how I'm feeling, just my general thoughts. And that is much closer to how I buy watches anyway, and so I want to share those thoughts as well. Before we begin scoring the watch against the rubric though, I want to give a little bit of context. The watch is an Explorer, it's a field watch, which means that part of the design philosophy and design language is that it is tough, durable, and highly legible. And that the wearer has kind of like an adventurous spirit. So let's get to it. We'll start with the function, feel, and visual appeal of the case and bracelet. As one would expect from a field watch, the case is made of stainless steel, the 316L variety. The watch borrows the shapes, curves, and finish from its older brother, the Alpinist. As expected from a Seiko Prospex watch, the case finishing is good. The linear brushing on top of the lugs is very fine. You have to look through a loop in order to see the directional graining. All other surfaces are polished with the exception of some grooves on the crown. The crown is well proportioned to the size of the case, but needs a little texture or deeper channels to get better purchase. It is a little bit difficult to screw out and wind. The sapphire crystal has the slightest dome, which goes wonderfully with the case shapes. On the other side of the case is a display case back to see the utilitarian 6R35 movement. On the case back, one can see that the watch is water resistant to 200 meters, which combined with the case material and sapphire crystal enhance the overall durability and toughness of this watch. I don't have it on the stock leather strap, but as with all leather straps, they do not last forever. For a field watch, a steel bracelet, canvas, or ballistic nylon would have improved the watch's long-term usability. This combined with the slightly slippery crown work against the watch's user experience. As this watch does not have a rotating bezel or a chapter ring insert, it escapes the quality control issues with which Seiko seems to be plagued. 7.5 out of 10 for form, 7 out of 10 for function. Let's move on to that black and blue dial. It has a rough sandpaper or grip tape appearance to it. There's a slight gradient from the center of the dial being slightly lighter blue to being a darker navy blue. Everything is painted on except for the Seiko name, which is applied in brushed metal. The paint is uneven in places. You can see the blue of the dial through the paint and can spot abnormalities as well. There is a clash of design ideologies here, with a grand total of 5 different fonts on the dial. The Seiko text was adopted in the 60s, I believe. The hour numerals font was first introduced in 1992. The cursive text and 20 bar in the SARB series in 2006, and the Prospex X being added most recently. This seems a little unnecessary and could be cleaned up. However, the dial is pretty legible, with the white and yellowish white paint contrasting well with the blue dial. The classic rounded cathedral hands are on display and well loomed. However, just as with its bigger brother, the hourly lume plots are tiny and don't last long in the dark. Overall, pretty well executed. 8.5 out of 10 for both form and function. Let's move on to the 6R35 inside of the case. If you've seen any of my other watch reviews with this movement, you might want to skip to the next section because there's no new ground to cover here. The movement is hackable and hand winding. It beats at 21,600 beats per minute and has a date complication. The bright spot on the spec list is the 70-hour power reserve. Some parts along the date train are made of plastic. As far as decoration, it's nothing special to look at. There's some linear brushing throughout. And in terms of reliability, it is pretty robust, perfect for adventuring. The movement is notoriously bad at keeping time and is rated at -15 to +25 seconds per day. This one seems to keep pretty good time, but I haven't timed this particular watch. 4 points for form, 4.5 points for function, putting the watch at a 36.5 so far, which is a little bit ahead of its older brother, the Alpinist. Let's move on to the brand's heritage and prestige. I believe the Seiko brand sits outside of the Swiss giants in terms of prestige, but has equal visibility compared to brands such as Omega, Cartier, and Tag Heuer. The brand has a huge cult-like following in the value space, but recently there has been some who are disgruntled as their prices seem to go higher and higher without much improvement in their watches. In terms of history, Seiko dates back to 1881. They have a variety of interesting achievements, such as battering the Swiss brands in their own Swiss observatory chronometer trials, the invention of the first quartz movement, the spring drive movement, and the first automatic chronograph. The brand comfortably holds the highest score outside of the luxury circle. But because of the brand's recent pullback in terms of watch enthusiasts' enthusiasm, the watch gets a 6 out of 10 for brand heritage and prestige, giving it a total score of 42.5. This particular reference, the SPB157, is in production at the moment and is going new for around $700 USD. However, you can get it a little bit cheaper on the gray market, and if you go to the used market, you can find it for $5 to $550 pretty easily. I will use $500 because I feel like this watch is cooling off a little bit at the moment. The calculations bring the value multiplier to 1.623, and the value score is therefore 68.98, knocking the previous model Green Alpinist out of 5th place. So that brings me to my personal opinion on the watch. The watch is a little bit too polished for me. The only brushed surfaces are on the top sides of the lugs, and even that brushing is very fine and almost looks a little bit polished, so it doesn't really break things up quite as much as some of Seiko's other brushing. As far as the case size goes, this is the 38mm case size, which wears pretty well, especially with the curves of the case. It is one of those watches that just disappears on the wrist. But I do wish it was a little bit bigger. I do like the sizing of the regular Alpinist, which is only 1.5 millimeters bigger, which, you know, it's hard to tell that much difference, really. I mean, you couldn't tell that much difference if you were looking at the two watches side by side, but for some reason, when it's on your wrist, you can kind of just, I don't know. For me, it's, I guess, psychosomatic. I do like, though, that the internal rotating compass is gone. I like this cleaner look quite a bit. Onto the dial. I don't really like the minimalist loom. Really, for a field watch, I feel like it should be pretty clearly visible at dusk and at night. You know, if you're out in the wilderness, it would be nice to be able to tell what time it is. On the other hand, I really do like the design of most of the dial. The texture is really amazing. I think Seiko makes some of the best texture dials currently. I like the color. That gradient is really nice, and the colors on top of the blue, the color of the cathedral hands and the silver markers and indices, I think those go really nice as well. I wish that it didn't use so many different fonts. 4 fonts I feel like I could live with. 5 fonts, that really pushes it over the edge, I think, for me. I mean, it's weird how psychologically just that one added element can change the watch so much. Alright, so do you agree with the scoring? Is there anything that you would change about the rubric itself? Is there any content you'd like to see me make, or any watches you'd like to see me review? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for making it to the end. Bye, y'all.